Well, I'm joined now by the chair of the government's Fuel Poverty Advisory Group, who was in that very same job when one Ed Miliband was Energy Secretary before the last election, Derek Lickorish. Well, when millions are facing gas and electricity price hikes of ending up to 10% this winter, what kind of impact will that have on particularly the poor and the elderly?
The impact is devastating. We know that if you live in a poorly insulated home that's damp and you cannot afford your energy bills, you are in fuel poverty and you're at much greater risk of respiratory illness, bronchitis, things like that. And we know that this contributes to the additional winter deaths that we have in this country.
So potentially,
when you talk about... fatal for some.
So in that context, have you been urging David Cameron to look at exactly what Ed Miliband's now proposed, to freeze prices?
We have been urging all political parties to tackle the issue over energy. The Liberal Democrats have declared that they will use carbon revenues in the same way that the Australian government, the Estonian government and the French government are going to recycle some of that money back into insulating homes, because that is the long-term solution.
But do you agree with Ed Miliband that prices should be frozen?
I welcome the Ed Miliband's announcement today that about the price freeze. But of course I do have some concerns about it. What happens after the price freeze? Will we see a big catch-up? What happens before the price freeze? Will we see bigger than expected price increases? And of course, are we going to see additional costs in borrowing to fund the enormous sums that are required to decarbonise our electricity system? So there's a lot to this. It's not straightforward, but I do acknowledge he is passionate about the issue.
But it sounds like you have some pretty significant concerns. Do you think this is, bottom line, that this is workable or not?
I think they could introduce the freeze. It's difficult to see how, before he is in power, he can stop a significant increase going through. I know he's had
increase in bills running up to the freeze.
Yes, that's right. And I have had a casual look at the legislation, or his proposals, his legal advice. And it's saying that if there is collusion, they perhaps have an opportunity to intervene. But at the moment, it's hard to see how a price increase before and a catch-up happening afterwards is going to be avoided.
So some of those warnings from the energy companies aren't as dire as they might at first seem, then?
I don't think there's an issue about the lights going out, but this will create uncertainty, and there will be an issue over investment in some aspects of the new equipment that we need to do certain things over the longer term. The markets want certainty. Today, this hasn't created certainty.
And with all the risks that you've talked about, there is a very real possibility, isn't there, that Ed Miliband's policy might, in the long run, make no difference to consumers?
It is possible. I'm very pleased that he has raised the issue. But I would like to see a further announcement from him about making the homes of the fuel poor more energy efficient. And let's hear from all suppliers that they will do something about the poorest people in society this winter and not increase their bills.
Derek Lickorish, thank you very much for joining me.